Death to the false emperor.
Spiking bits.
Welcome back, Hobby Maniacs. Today is a very special day because the fluff and lore, the actual building blocks of the Horus Hersey novels, the 50 plus Horus Hersey novels, are all contained within these 4 tomes in penned index or titled Index Astartes. And it may have been Sevatar that first uttered or are attributed the phrase, death to the false emperor. He didn't even exist at the time, at least that I know of, at the time these were written, and eventually formulated all of the fluff, all of the creative juices from these books were turned into the Horus Hersey novels, along with all the background for the 18 legions of Space Marines into the current era of Warhammer 40k as we kind of all know it. Now, there is information in here that have kind of been retconned or kind of taken and expanded on more, as I'm about to show you in the first one. Each Index Astartes collected articles from the White Dwarf. And the reason we're showing you is not by chance, these issues. It's not by chance. They said in the White Dwarf for December 2018 that the Index Astartes would be returning in January 2019. So that got me thinking, hey, are they redoing the fluff? No, they're probably talking about Primaris Marines. So they're expanding on the existing fluff for all of the 18 legions or 18 chapters. Actually, Blind Templars are in here too. And probably going forward with all the things that are happening with the Great Rift and the Primaris and the Ultima Founding and all that stuff. So it's a really exciting time fluff-wise for Warhammer 40k, but you can't help but want to go back to the roots and check out what happened in these books right here. Now, Index Astartes 1 was officially collected in 2002, and it contains articles and fluff written from all sorts of folks that you've probably heard of. Not so much on the Chris Cook, but the Pete Haynes, the Jervis, the Grahams, the Rick Priestleys, the Gav Thorpes, all those folks definitely come to mind. And then you've got the production team here, a lot of folks that aren't with them anymore, but are spun off with other companies at this point, of course. Venerable illustrators, John Blanche, etc., and Citadel designers, sculptors, Dave Andrews, obviously still there, Mark Bedford on the Forge World side, Jess, a man that needs no description or introduction right there, and Ali Morrison. And then you've got the miniature painters, the team at the time right there. Some of them have gone on to bigger and better things. Some of them are still with the company. Like I said, this collected the White Dwarf articles earlier in that year and also the late 90s, early 2000s into this tome and 4 other tomes. The second one came out in 2002, the third in 2004, I believe, and the last and final one in 2005, which we're going to show you. And that's basically when they started coming up with the idea to write the Horus Hersey novels. They were probably already in the motions of writing the very first novel. The Rites of Initiation, the creation of the Space Marine. You've probably seen this article. I know they've reprinted it recently in the White Dwarf, but that's in here. This is where it came from. It was originally in a White Dwarf earlier than this publication. And then it goes into talking about the Codex Astartes, of course, that Guilliman wrote. It's got all that stuff in here. And then they start, where else would you start? Within the First Legion, the Dark Angels chapter of Space Marines, or I guess Legion at the time. And they start going over all the fluff and everything. And you'll notice as you read in here that there are familiarities and things, but also things that have been retconned and changed in the new books. Stuff on Luther, stuff on Lionel Johnson, and all sorts of things. It also contained rules on how to play them back in 3rd edition. But the one I wanted to show you the most was probably the Children of the Emperor. Now, the Children of the Emperor in here, I think at this point they were officially the 3rd Legion. At some point they were the 20th Legion, but they changed that to the Alpha Legion at some point. I don't exactly remember. I didn't see any notation here where they said what exact Legion they were. But if you look on some of their artwork back in the day, this is a cropped version. I know there's a bigger version that had 2 X's on it for notating the 20th Legion, that you can find that. Now, this particular article, just to kind of show you an example of how they took this fluff and turned it into the current stuff that we know in the Horus Hersey novels, is there's this little side story about the cleansing of Laren, or however you pronounce it, but it basically talks about the Laren, which were a lizard reptile species that you will see in the Horus Heresy, in the novel Fulgrim, as a matter of fact. And they talked about how they wiped them out. But what they don't talk about here is how wiping them out basically led to the corruption of the Emperor's children themselves, especially once Fulgrim himself got a hold of that possessed sword. All of that from this little side story here that existed years and years and years before the novel Fulgrim even came out. So there's a lot of stuff in here that if you start reading through it, it's just a treasure trove of really cool little Easter eggs, or things that might not exactly be the same anymore, but just to read it, you'd be like, wait a minute, I remember reading that in novel whatever, and it's not the same anymore. And again, there are rules in here for playing 40k as well, back in the day, but it doesn't exactly port over nowadays. This was actually the 3.0, the version 3. There was a 3.5 Chaos Codex that folks basically regard as probably the best Chaos Codex to date. I definitely do, but I might be in the minority. And then they've got the Iron Warriors in here, again talking about the fluff, the organization, some of the famous battles, how to use them in Warhammer 40k at the time. They also have the White Scars, and sometimes there's little segments in here where they talk about other things, the Flesh Tearers, which really weren't the Legion. They're kind of a sub-founding. Warriors of Old, just talking about dreadnoughts in general. And then I think there's a section in here on librarians too. So they saved enough content that they could kind of spread it out over multiple books. I don't even remember how much the books cost at the time, but they were super fun and definitely totally worth it. And to this day, I still have them because they are that good of a resource. Book 2 of the Index Astartes also came out in 2002 and collected yet again White Dwarf articles, etc., etc. It's a great little book. It contains the Space Wolves, the Fists. I think that's actually... we'll find out. Bringers of Darkness, Angels of Death, Purge the Unclean, Righteous Zeal, For the Emperor, and the Cursed Founding. Cursed Founding is just literally what it is. They make some allusions. I will spoil it for you because you might not get this story and then you'll never know. But they make some allusions to how Fabius Bile had a hand or perhaps a psychic connection to some genetic experimentation that was done on Space Marines. And that is a really interesting story. So you got the Space Wolves in here as well with Logan Grimnar, talking a lot about that. Nice little gallery in here. The Emperor's Fist, none other than the Imperial Fist themselves. There is an incredible showcase. A lot of folks don't remember this, but Bobby Wong painted up this incredible Blood Quest diorama using Vallejo paints for the very first time. They really came to the fore in the States, and just an exquisite diorama. Won the Slayer Sword in 2001 at the Golden Demon Awards. Captain Leonatus, if you don't know the story, look it up on Lexicanum. They have some graphic novels, some stories. It's just a really interesting kind of timeless tale about failure and redemption and just all sorts of stuff. It's just a really, really good story. Night Lords are in here too. Very cool. And then you've got a little gallery as well. Then you've got the Angels of Death, none other than the Blood Angels, talking about a lot of that. And then you've got the Grey Knights and Death Watch chapters. They were kind of attached to the hit. Remember, they didn't really have their own separate codexes back then. They had a Demon Hunters codex that eventually came out in late 2006, 2007, I think. And the Death Watch were just kind of an option. You could buy upgrade bits, and their rules are actually very similar to Sternguard rules that were written into the 2005 Space Marine Codex as an elite choice. And now, of course, they've expanded on that quite a lot with their own book, finally here in 2017, which actually came out in 2018. So it took them a hot minute to get their own rule set, their own codex books, about 15 years. But they did it, and it's pretty cool. Then they have a reprint of the Black Templars army list that was in Codex Armageddon. And let's see what else we got in here. Probably some stuff on chaplains. Amazing art by Kev Walker. Yep, they got the chaplain segment in here. And then the Cursed Founding in the back, talking about what happened to a bunch of Space Marines that were genetically manipulated and who may have been behind it. Book 3 came out several years after the first two. This one looks to have come out, I want to say, oh no, 2003, just a year after this one. And it features the Iron Hands, the World Eaters, Ultramarines, Death Guard, Thousand Suns, Defenders of Ultramar story. For the Polar Defenses, the first company sold themselves dearly, and then the Armored Fury of the Land Raider, which you'll probably realize some of the graphics or remember some of the graphics. There was a poster that was put out, I want to say in 2001, when they put out the new plastic Land Raider, which of course they came out with several variants since, but the first one was kind of groundbreaking at the time, I'll be quite honest. So you got the Iron Hands army. They actually played like Space Wolves at the time with clans and all sorts of different things. It was kind of they had a remarkable similarity to the Space Wolves. A little background story and some more stuff there. Chosen to Corn, of course, you've got the Berserkers or the World Eaters, whatever you want to call them. Lots in there. And then you've got the Warriors of Ultramar as well. Cool stories. Very neat stuff. Lost in the Damned, of course. The Tyranid Hunters too. I remember that. That was the first time we saw Chaplain Cassius as a person. Death Guard. Very cool. Remember, there's going to be a lot of stories and things in here, like Captain Garrow of the Death Guard. This is Captain Garrow before all the novels and everything like that. Yep. So there it is. Captain Garrow turned to Nurgle and became a champion of Death Guard. As the Lord of Flies, he still leads the plague fleets from the Eye. Well, like I said, there's a lot of interesting stuff in here. Oh my. So, a lot of basis, but a lot of changes. There's Typhus, of course. We know the story of Typhus. That hasn't really changed. Of course, Typhon was invented later on. Masters of Forbidden Knowledge, you got the T-Sons in here. Magnus, of course, doing nothing wrong as ever. Defenders of Ultramar, talking about that epic battle at the Polar Defenses and all that stuff there that you could find in the second edition Ultramarine book. Little Marnius Calgar, he's so cute. Look at the little guy right there. And then some of the models of the time. That's the old Hive Tyrant, the old metal Hive Tyrant that looked like the Alien Queen, the Tyrant Guard of the time, the Beetle Pattern Carnifex that a lot of folks called it. Man, let me tell you what, those are some memories right there. And then, of course, the Land Raider poster that so many folks may actually have in their Beats Labs still to this day. Great little book, great little issue right there. Last but certainly not least, Index Astartes 4 was released in 2005. As a matter of fact, most old schoolers don't even know this book exists. I actually bought it on accident. I didn't even know it existed at the time. All of these books you can probably still find on eBay for a decent amount of money. But, man, let me tell you what, they're totally worth it. As you just saw, a couple of little hidden Easter egg nuggets of retconness. Just from a couple of passages I've showed you in these reviews. So this is going to have the Black Legion, Abaddon, a feature on him, World Bear, Salamanders, Raven Guard, Alpha Legion, Crimson Fist, which wasn't a Legion at the time, Tactical Dreadnought Armor, that's right, Tud Terminators, Renegade Space Marine chapters, and the Space Marine Predator, which also featured its own poster, which came out after the last book in 2003, but before this book in 2005. So let's get right to it. Sons of Horus, Lunar Wolves. This is where they really start kind of tightening in their focus on what the backdrop and the narrative is going to be for the Horus Heresy. One could even say they started seeding these things in the White Dwarf to get people hype for more, and of course have the Horus Heresy novels drop, later on in 2006 with the very first novel by Dan Abnett. Dark Apostles, the Word Bearers Legion in here. We're not going to stop. We are almost out of time, so we're just going to keep going. Salamanders here. Boom. Lots of cool stuff on them, I'm sure. I actually haven't read these books in about 10 years, but every time I stop, there's something interesting, so we can't stop. Alpha Legion, here it is. Let's see if they say that they were the 20th, or what Legion they were, if they say. Doesn't really say. Nothing stands out to me. Bloody Fist, Crimson Fist chapter. Of course, they've retconned the background and things a little bit on the Ren's World incident, but it's still pretty true from what I remember in this one. Chapter Master Cantor, got to figure a couple of years later. Deep Strike talking about the Terminators themselves. Tactical Dreadnought Armor. There's Terminators at the time. Marnius just got his upgrade in 2005 with the new Space Marine Codex. Rogue Sun, so this is all of the Traitor Legions once they went bad. Oh, actually, no, this is the Badab stuff. Okay. Armored Hunter, the Space Marine Predator, and it's going to feature, of course, a spread of that poster in the back right there. Very cool stuff. So that's it. That's all 4 issues right there. Oh wow, that's that's right. I remember buying that. That's crazy. Wow. Memories. Memories. I remember that day actually purchasing that now that I saw that sticker on the back. Wow. So long story short, Index Astartes, if you can still find these, they contain the most warmest of nuggets of fluff on the Legion, some correct, some incorrect, but the proto building blocks to the Horus Hersey novels, and of course everything we know today. Can't wait to see what Games Workshop does with the new Index Astartes segments in the White Dwarf starting in January 2018. Hopefully it's Primaris. Find out more about those guys, what makes them tick, what's going on. Are they going to execute Order 66? Are normal Space Marines days numbered? Find out all these things and more, maybe from Games Workshop in the next White Dwarf. And obviously, if you like hobby segments, showcases, retros, things like that, make sure you hit that subscribe button. It's that easy. Just hit subscribe. You'll get notified as soon as we have a new video out. You can be the very first to like or comment on it.
Spiking bits.